Tonight, we're going to travel back to a time that will make you very, very grateful for the hot shower you had today. We're stepping into the strange, filthy, and fascinating world of Victorian hygiene. On the surface, lace gowns, polished boots, tall hats. Underneath all that beauty, life was far from clean. Take a slow, deep breath. Sink into whatever you're lying on, and imagine this. London, 1850s. Congratulations, you've just woken up in the Victorian era. The first thing that hits you isn't what you see, it's what you smell. The air is thick, heavy, almost chewable. Imagine every foul odor you've ever wanted to avoid. Human waste, rotting garbage, coal smoke, stirred together with something sweet and sickly, a smell you can't quite name, but it makes your stomach turn. That is Victorian air. You shift in bed. The sheets scratch against your skin, rough, dirty, nothing like the soft cotton you're used to. Fabric softener won't exist for another 100 years. And if you're poor, which most people are, you're crammed into a tiny room, maybe 10 feet by 12, with 6 or 8 other people. Could be your family, could be strangers. Privacy is a luxury only the rich can afford. The walls are damp, mold creeping in the corners, and everyone breathes the same stale air. If you're middle class, you're luckier. You might get your own bed, even your own room. But don't imagine comfort. There's no running water, no electricity, no bathroom as you know it. The wealthy live better, but even they are trapped in a world where hygiene is, well, questionable. Here's the thing. Victorians believed they were clean. They had their own idea of hygiene. It's just very different from ours. Let's start with bathing. That long hot shower you took, forget it. People thought bathing too often was dangerous, that too much water could weaken the body, even make you sick. Most folks took a full bath maybe once a week. The poor, once a month, if that. Instead, they relied on sponge baths. Picture it. You stand in your bedroom beside a wooden stand. On it, a bowl filled with cold water, because hot water on demand doesn't exist. You dip a rag, wipe your face, your hands, your armpits, and the private bits. That's it. That's your bath. The wealthy did better. Some had copper tubs. Servants hauled buckets of hot water from the kitchen, filled the tub, and maybe twice a week you could sit in warmth. But even then, families shared the water. Father first, then mother, then the children, one by one. By the time the youngest climbed in, the water was a greasy soup of dirt and skin. And there were actual rule books for bathing. Don't wash your face while traveling unless you can purify the water with alcohol. Alternate between hot water and cold water to prevent wrinkles. Exhausting advice. Teeth were another nightmare. Toothbrushes existed, wooden handles with stiff animal bristles. They were expensive and painful to use. Poor people chewed celery stalks or scrubbed with chalk, soot, even powdered cuttlefish bone. Toothpaste burned, scratched, and often damaged more than it helped. And if a tooth ached, you didn't go to a dentist. Dentists were rare. You went to the barber or even the blacksmith. The man who trimmed beards or shoed horses now shoved tools into your mouth with no anesthesia, no proper training. If you screamed, you screamed. Hair washing wasn't much better. Shampoo didn't exist. Women cracked eggs over their scalps, rubbed in the yolks, rinsed with cold water. Others tried vinegar, rum, rosemary water, even black tea. The wealthy experimented with perfumes and oils, but oils went rancid, leaving hair that looked fine but smelled foul. And here's the kicker. They only washed their hair maybe once a month. Women styled it high, pinned it, and left it. Layers of dust, oil, and sweat trapped for weeks. Laundry was a brutal task. No machines. Every wash was by hand. Soap was expensive, so people used whatever they had. Chalk for grease, kerosene for bloodstains, milk for odors, and for bleaching, human urine. Because urine contains ammonia, a decent cleaner, but still urine. Washing clothes took an entire day, so people simply wore them longer, weeks sometimes. That elegant Victorian outfit? Chances are it hadn't been washed in a very long time. Poor people often skipped underwear altogether. The wealthy wore layers, corsets, petticoats, shirts, all absorbing sweat, food smells, coal smoke, and body odor. None of it cleaned often. Now, picture this. Summer in London. Thousands of people crammed into narrow streets, all wearing heavy, unwashed clothes. Add in the stench of horse manure, coal smoke, and rotting garbage. The air is thick, foul, almost solid. You don't just smell it, you taste it. And that's just the people. The streets themselves were horrors. London had nearly 2 million residents by the mid-1800s. All of them produced waste. Human waste, animal waste, household garbage. And there was no organized trash collection. People threw everything into the streets. Rotting piles built up, attracting rats, flies, and disease. Sewage ran through open gutters. On hot days, the smell was unbearable. They called it the Great Stink. Imagine walking past the Thames River. It wasn't water. It was a thick, poisonous sludge of waste. People still drew drinking water from it. Cholera, typhoid, dysentery, these diseases spread like wildfire. Entire families wiped out in weeks. No one knew why at first. Many believed disease came from bad air, miasma. It took years before doctors proved it was the contaminated water. And so, daily life was a constant battle against filth, against smell, against sickness, against the body itself. Now, take a slow breath. Feel the clean air around you. The sheets beneath you are soft, washed, smelling faintly of detergent. Your teeth brushed with mint. Your hair clean. Your clothes fresh. You have running water, hot showers, flushing toilets, dentists, soap, shampoo. In every possible way, you are richer in comfort than even the wealthiest Victorians. So tonight, as you drift into sleep, be grateful for the little things, the things that seem ordinary, but are extraordinary gifts of the modern world. Because compared to Victorian hygiene, you are living in paradise.
Human waste was its own nightmare in Victorian London. Toilets as you know them simply didn't exist for most people. Instead, families relied on chamber pots, small bowls tucked beneath the bed. You do your business during the night, and come morning, someone had to deal with it. Sometimes it was carried to a shared privy in the backyard, sometimes it was dumped into a cesspool, and sometimes, if laziness or desperation struck, it was just tossed straight out the window onto the street below. That's where the night soil men came in. These were the poor souls tasked with emptying cesspools and privies, but they only worked under the cover of darkness because the job was too filthy, too shameful to be seen in daylight. Their carts rattled through narrow lanes while most people slept, hauling away barrels of waste. And where did it all go? Straight into the River Thames, the very same river Londoners also drew their drinking water from. Just imagine that for a moment. The same current carrying human sewage was also carrying the water people boiled for tea. And then there were the horses. London was powered by horsepower. Thousands upon thousands of animals dragging carts, omnibuses and carriages through the streets. And every single horse left behind piles of manure. A single horse could produce 30 to 40 pounds of dung a day. Multiply that by thousands, and the result was staggering mountains of filth. When it rained, it all churned into brown rivers snaking through the cobblestones. When the sun beat down, it baked into dust, filling the air with a choking stench that coated everything. People lived in it, walked through it, breathed it. For them, this was simply normal. When everyone smells the same, disgust becomes invisible. The Victorians didn't see themselves as dirty. They thought they were managing fine. But disease spread like wildfire. Cholera, dysentery, typhoid. They didn't understand germs yet. Instead, they believed in miasma, the idea that bad air, foul smells themselves, were what made people sick. So rather than fixing sanitation, they tried to mask it. Perfume, cologne, herbs, clouds of fragrance meant to overpower the reek of filth. But perfume and sewage don't mix. The result was a sickly sweet odor that clung to clothes, hair, and homes. The wealthy drenched themselves in expensive fragrances. The poor relied on whatever they could find, cheap scents, crushed flowers, even vinegar. But no matter what you used, you couldn't hide the truth. Unwashed bodies, unwashed clothes, streets running with manure and sewage. The smell was everywhere. And hygiene for women carried its own dangers. Makeup was common, but deadly. Face powders were laced with lead, rouge for the cheeks contained mercury. Women literally poisoned themselves in the name of beauty, their skin breaking out in sores, their health failing as the toxins seeped into their blood. Hair dyes were worse. One popular formula, Hall's Hair Renewer, promised to restore youthful color. Its secret ingredient? Lead. People rubbed it directly into their scalps, day after day, never understanding why they were sick. Even beauty treatments were unsettling. Lemon juice to bleach freckles, butter smeared on skin for moisture, raw meat pressed on the face as a mask to keep it youthful. Imagine sleeping with slices of beef resting across your cheeks, rotting slowly while you dreamed. Combine that with the reek of chamber pots, coal smoke, rancid pomade, and overbearing perfume, and the smell inside a Victorian bedroom must have been overwhelming. But people adapted. They did what they could with the knowledge they had. Wealthy households relied on armies of servants to carry water, wash linens, and discreetly empty chamber pots. Poorer families relied on each other, pooling resources and scraping together what little they had. Cleanliness was a luxury, not a guarantee. For most, the priority was survival, food on the table, rent paid, coal for heat. Hygiene was an afterthought. Even the so-called toilets of the wealthy were flawed. Some homes had early water closets, rudimentary toilets that emptied into cesspools hidden beneath the house. Imagine that, a basement filled with fermenting human waste, leaking gases and odors that crept up through the floorboards. The closer you lived to wealth, the sweeter the perfume, yet the worse the stench beneath your feet. And still, through it all, people loved, joked, argued, celebrated. Families sat together at tables, neighbors greeted each other in the streets, children played in alleyways that we would today refuse to even walk through. For them, this was just life. For us, it's almost unthinkable. So, as you sink deeper into your bed tonight, grateful for running water and modern plumbing, remember this: just a century and a half ago, survival meant wading through filth, masking it with perfume, and pretending it was normal.
There's eventually someone would come and empty it. But, well, that didn't always happen on schedule. When the cesspool got full, the smell would creep up through the floorboards. Whole houses would reek. Families would wake in the morning dizzy and nauseous from the fumes that had built up overnight. And then came the call for the night soil men. They only worked after dark because the work was considered too shameful, too disgusting for daylight hours. Imagine it, these men creeping through the streets with carts and buckets, descending into basements with nothing but shovels and lanterns, hauling up human waste one bucket at a time. Neighbors stuffed rags under doors and slammed their shutters, but the stench seeped in anyway. And yet, human waste was valuable. Farmers wanted fertilizer, and human waste made excellent fertilizer. So the night soil men hauled their cargo out of the city, selling it to farmers who spread it across their fields. Which meant the vegetables Londoners ate for dinner were literally grown in the same filth that carried cholera and typhoid through the city. The cycle was endless. You breathe a little deeper, safe in your own clean room, as you think about how obvious the connection feels now. But at the time, it wasn't. By the 1850s, London had grown too large, too many people, too much waste. The night soil men couldn't keep up. Cesspools overflowed, streets ran slick with sewage after rain. And still people emptied chamber pots straight into alleys, into streams, into the river. And that river, the Thames, was also the city's main source of drinking water. People were literally swallowing their own waste. Everyone knew there was a problem. The smell made it undeniable. Scientists argued, politicians debated. Some wanted more cesspools. Some thought the river could carry it all away. Others shrugged. London had always been foul. Why change now? And then came the summer of 1858. The Great Stink. It was hot, relentlessly hot. Weeks of blazing sun with almost no rain. The Thames shrank to a sluggish trickle, leaving thick black sludge clinging to the riverbanks. Sewage baked under the sun, fermenting into something beyond description. Imagine every horrible smell you've ever known, rot, waste, decay, multiplied 1,000 times, filling the air every moment of every day. People gagged just walking near the water. Families abandoned homes, offices closed. Even Parliament, perched right beside the Thames, nearly shut down. Members tried to carry on business with curtains soaked in chloride of lime, desperate to mask the stench. Still, the smell forced its way in. A long breath escapes as you imagine living in that world where the very air seemed poisonous. And yet, Londoners carried on. They still cooked dinners, still walked to work, still tried to live their lives with the great stink pressing down on them. And you can simply roll over in your bed, grateful for clean water, modern sewage systems, and the comfort of never knowing what that summer was truly like.